using satellite data from NASA and ESA, combined with AI-powered analytics to understand and predict what is happening in the commodity markets. Welcome to the latest episode of Chat about Geopolitics and Trade on the Seatrade Maritime Podcast, presented by Maritime NXT founder Punit Oza.
Welcome to another episode of Chat about Geopolitics and Trade, which I always call my Chat GPT. It's always a pleasure to have some interesting guests. And today I would like to start off by a disclaimer or a kind of a conflict announcement, because this particular set of guests belong to a company, Tathya Earth, where I'm also an advisor, but I find their work to be so fascinating that I think they tie in perfectly with both geopolitics and trade and shipping. So, without further ado, let me introduce Nikit Shrungarpawar, who is the COO of Tathya, and Naresh Palaiya, who's CTO of Tathya. And Tathya, with whom I've been associated for quite a few years, is a real time or near real time AI enabled commodity market intelligence platform. Commodities and trade play an extremely vital role in what the business of shipping is all about. In fact, most of the time, shipping is very much driven and linked to what's happening in the commodity market. I have done and I've seen that happen all the time during my time at Clavinus. So, Nikit and Naresh, welcome to Chat about Geopolitics and Trade podcast.
Thanks, Puneet, for inviting to the podcast, and pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Punit. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. And first time doing this thing for you, so pretty excited as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, guys. It's always good to talk to you. So maybe I gave a very brief idea about what Tathya does, but maybe you can also speak a few words about Tathya. Give me a little bit of background behind it, and then I will try and link it up with how this links up to geopolitics and trade. But maybe a quick background of how Tathya formed and what is the kind of key offerings of Tathya.
Yeah, sure. So we started a long time ago now, prior to COVID. So I think pre-COVID and post-COVID, there are dramatic shifts in the world that we live in. So we started in the pre-COVID era, and we used to work as our corporate jobs are. And there, this idea came into existence where we wanted to do something around data, where we could provide a platform for data analytics, because we saw with the technology catching up, new and new data sets were coming into the market, but everybody was using different data sets in isolation and trying to analyze those and trying to think through. Where we saw a huge gap, because none of these data sets that everybody were using were streamlined, neither were they available on a single platform, neither they connecting the dots to understand the entire gamut of supply chain. So here we found out that this is a huge area, and at that time we believed that climate change is for real, and commodities are the one which are going to be impacted and probably are also going to help the world resolve this. And fortunately, after 3 years, we saw the Paris climate change and a lot of things which inadvertently had true what we thought, like say 6 years before. So we started with that, and then we saw a good opportunity in terms of monitoring the global commodity supply chain, because the supply chains were looking fragile that point of time. And then saw we had COVID, and it disrupted the market like nobody thought would be seen. The prices skyrocketed, the commodity prices went to a level never seen before, and then we saw dramatic shifts in trade flow started happening. So the idea which we thought was about how do we monitor on a near real time basis the global commodities supply chain. And for this idea, we bumped into a lot of research work where we saw using satellite data or say remote sensing, this particular problem can be solved. And that is where we started exploring more on the technology aspect. How can we use this to build out our algorithms and use the alternative data like satellite images to provide a near real time view on the commodities supply chain.
If you're enjoying the Seatrade Maritime Podcast, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing on the app of your choice.
And Naresh, with regard to technology, the stuff that you're using is essentially satellite images. But then you have proprietary technology that you're putting the machine learning, the AI. How does that work? How do you combine those data with the tech that you have pretty much in-house developed, I would say, yeah?
Right. So before I answer to that question, I'll just add on to the previous one also what Nikit has mentioned. So Tathya, or depending upon how do you pronunciate it, it means truth in Sanskrit,
Right.
and Sanskrit is basically one of the ancient languages in the world, and it has the root of many modern Indian languages. And for all the listeners to this podcast, you can sort of relate it to like Latin in Europe, which is has a influential to the other languages also. So that has been our core mission to uncover the the opacity in this overall commodity supply chain and bring out the ground truth. And you rightly pointed out, we are leveraging the satellite images along with the technologies. And let me sort of come on to that part, sort of how exactly we are doing it. So if I break down the commodity supply chain, so it starts with the mining process. So first of all, the mineral gets mined, and then they are transported either via rails or trucks to the the ports, where they are kept in the open stockyards, like commodities like coal, iron ore, bauxite, right? And then via the different vessels, they are actually transported to the destination ports, and then from destination ports they are transported to the the industrial units like steel plants, copper smelters. So at our end, what we are doing it, we are monitoring these three components of the the overall supply chain: how much mining is happening, how much, let's say, the inventories are kept of these minerals at the source port or the destination port,
Hmm.
and finally the how much, let's say, the using these minerals, the finished commodities are being produced, like the steels or the copper. And to the industry which we are catering, uh, industrial units roughly spend around 60 to 65% of their expenditure on procuring the raw material. Like steel plants actually spend around roughly 60% in procuring iron ore and coal. And
Right.
the supply chain of these commodities are global. Hence, if you look at it from a business point of view, it is extremely crucial for them to have the real time visibility, as well as to run their plants on a day to day operations.
And also reduce the inventory cost if possible by having a very close real time monitoring of it, because that inventory can become quite a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, true, absolutely. So we sort of give them the a visibility into this overall supply chain, and at our end, the technology is basically helps us procuring the the satellite images from various sources, the news, the quarterly reports. So the technology actually give us the raw material which is required to feed into our algorithms, and the satellite images or the revisit of the satellite images help us in providing the near real time insights to our customers.
Got it. Perfect. That's a very interesting intersection that you guys have found. And obviously, I have seen it myself, so I can vouch for that as an interesting space to be in. But let's come to the fact that the commodities, how geopolitically charged are these commodities now? And Nikit, you mentioned a little bit about the fact that we are now in a multipolar world in a separate discussion with me. The multipolarity of the world means that you have the ability to source commodities from multiple areas now. Because if it was a single power center or a superpower, let's say, you can easily find that influence of that superpower was inordinately large, creating very predictable trade flows. But today, with a multipolar world, geopolitically charged world, you obviously have multiple set of origins or sources which can be looked at. How do you see that kind of interaction with geopolitics and trade, with some examples? If you can give me what areas you're monitoring in Tathya, and why are you monitoring these areas, and how geopolitics is impacting your thinking when you try and develop these solutions?
So, yeah, geopolitics is changing the trade flows dramatically. And we have seen that countries which never used to trade with a particular country now are trading with those countries. And an example for that would be India, which never invested outside India in mineral deposits or natural resources, recently invested in Argentina for lithium deposits for six lithium mines exploration and mining.
Right.
And that has come from government of India and not a private entity from the country, which signifies that this is a huge change, that a government of, say, top 5 largest economies in the world is doing this kind of shift, because they know the future is going to be much more dynamic. We need to secure our raw materials right now, rather than depending on other countries, which traditionally it has been, and changing the dynamics of the world, because they would be mining and extracting, but the processing of the ore is going to happen in the country. So this is going to be a huge change in the trade flow that was happening earlier, because if, say, those 5 deposits, India as a country is self sufficient, then I see the trade flows completely changing for that particular commodity, which historically has not been.
Absolutely. And if I can just give you another very interesting example, that the Ukraine US mineral deal that has happened, keep a watch on it. They have got a clause in that which says that if America can either buy the minerals or take the minerals away for its own requirements, or has the ability to nominate any buyer of their choice who can then basically be used they use that mineral, which means that they are predominantly or effectively controlling the minerals sitting in Ukraine, and they can decide which trade flow eventually happens. So when you have real-time monitoring of these trade flows, they can actually create awareness, especially among commodity, but also among shipping players, in terms of probably new trade flows opening up. But that's very fascinating.
Yeah, and all this is changing so fast that you need a real time view on what is happening. Like,
Correct.
there is another project called Simandu iron ore mine, which is coming up, and everybody is tracking the progress of that particular project, because it has high grade iron ore. Currently, the high grade iron ore travels all the way from Latin America, say Brazil,
Hmm.
to China, which is a huge trade flow. That time is going to get cut in half once the Simandu project, and then you are also going to get high grade iron ore at lesser cost, lesser time period. So this is going to dramatic. And then Vale had built out, the largest miner in Brazil had built out a ship for that called Vale Max.
Right.
Now that entire trade flow is going to change. Nobody knows what is going to happen, but we will
Hmm.
see that in the next quarter when the project comes online.
Absolutely, and I think the ability to monitor the project, provide real time updates, is something that I've seen you guys do. So obviously, it's very relevant as such. But Naresh, coming to the other side that you guys do, one is of course, like Nikit mentioned, about monitoring and seeing the geopolitical impact, but you're also proactively trying to share a lot of the connections that Nikit mentioned, connecting the dots, as we call it, by creating on your platform. You have this geo panel, and I've seen it as a very interesting concept, where you're able to kind of pinpoint the major steel plants or commodity pinpoints around the world, and using those pinpoints you can go back into the news, which are affecting that particular mine or the port or the steel plant. And behind that, you are able to then even look at the data panel, which affects these particular plants' production. And can you corroborate some of these things using that geo panel? So, what was the thinking behind this geo panel, and how do you see it developing going forward as a technology tool for managing this risk?
So essentially, when we started, so we were monitoring these three components, like how much mining is happening, how much inventories or the stocks are lying on the ports, and finally the how much industrial units are producing. So these three individual products we used to serve it as a data as a service to our end consumers, which used to consume either in a form of in API or through the FTP server. But over a period of time, we have realized, there are like two set of customers whom we are catering. One is the tech savvy, who knows how to extract the valuable sort of information out of it. So they understand data. So they use our data sets in their model to adjust their, the pricing strategies or the hedging strategies, or readjusting their sourcing strategies. But
Right.
there are like other kinds of customers also who are not sort of that tech savvy, who does not know how to extract the valuable insights from this data. So keeping in mind that, we have created and consolidated all three of our product into a platform or a dashboard, what we call a geo panel. So let's say if you are any stakeholders in this value chain of commodity supply chain, either a miner or a trader or a hedge fund, or let's say, or a downstream companies, it will add some value in your life, in your day-to-day decision making. So geo panel is nothing but a world map, wherein, as you rightly pointed out, we are highlighting all the assets which we are covering it using the satellite images, whether it's a steel plant, whether it's a mines, whether it's a port. Now, when we click on a particular assets, then you go to a data panel wherein you can, further deep dive and look at it, what exactly is going on inside that particular assets.
Sure.
But going forward, all these insights are being generated currently by the satellite images, but we do also see a lot of information which are available in the public domain, like, the quarterly reports, the news which are published by the PRAs, etc., right?
Right.
So essentially, as what we want to do is, we want to combine our proprietary data, what we are deriving using our algorithms, as well as what is available in the public domain, and consolidate it into a unified platform to add more value to our end customers, right? And with the development of this foundational model, it is like comparatively easier to extract and, scrape the informations from the, the public sources, and sort of link it to a particular assets. So that's have been a work in progress, and we are sort of adding this publicly available information along with the pricing data into this geo panel as well as the data panel, to add more value to our different stakeholders whom we are catering to.
Interesting. I mean, this is pretty much like you're trying to get one piece at a time of the jigsaw puzzle to put it together.
Absolutely.
And it's a very fascinating exercise from that perspective. You mentioned a little bit about servicing different stakeholders. In terms of shipping as well, I remember a discussion some time ago with Nikit and you as well, Naresh, that somebody had actually already contracted a coal shipment from the Russian Far East, and there was absolutely no way. It was a very remote port, and nobody had any clue as to whether this cargo is physically there. And if you nominate a laycan and the ship shows up and nothing really is there, it can wait for a certain amount of time, and then damages can get incurred, and lots of things can happen. This is a classic shipping situation. Add to that the remoteness of the location, and the only way you could do it by monitoring the satellite data. So that I always remember as a good example how the shipping industry can benefit from technology. I remember doing a episode with John Thompson from Amber Analytics, who was looking at real time monitoring of risks, especially in the Houthi in the Red Sea area, in order to warn its customers in real time basis to stay away if there is an incident that has happened instantly, in order to save. So I think that real time monitoring has actually got massive value propositions for the industry. Making it simple, obviously, is very crucial. But how, behind the scenes, how difficult it is to make it simple? I mean, you have technology, you have training the data set, you have collaboration with so many different stakeholders. It's a very complicated process. But how do you see the progress of that happening, not just with Tathya, but generally in industry, as you kind of see this being adopted by more and more players?
As I mentioned, at the back end, we are using the technology like machine learning and the remote sensing to extract the, the raw material which is required for the algorithms, and then the satellite images which are actually, or the revisit of the, the satellite images, giving us the flexibility to provide this near real time insights to a lot of our customers. But our product is the no, not only the source which the customers use to, arrive at a decisions. They would be using, a lot of information at their end. And sometimes what happens is, even we also don't know, what is the reason for the anomaly. So let's say, for examples, recently one of the metallurgical coal mines in Australia had an ignition event underground. So their operations were suspended from the March 2025. But what we saw from the end of May or first week of June, they have, we were seeing some sort of an activity at their, the washing plant or around that area. So when we highlighted that particular incident to our customers, so then we got to know, probably I think their operations are not yet resumed, but probably they might be washing the, sort of coal from the third party sources. So along with our data sets, we help clients, but collaborating with clients, they also give us the feedback, which eventually sort of make our products also more robust and, more better.
Interesting. Nikit, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so I think this is what Naresh mentioned absolutely is from what we are building. But if you try to see the larger picture here, I
Hmm.
think there can be large partnerships between companies also here. Because as we monitor, say, the three nodes of supply chain,
Hmm.
the fourth node of the supply chain is the commodity flow data or the shipping flows data.
Right.
That also can be a very integral part and probably can help a lot of shipping guys as well as traders, the freight guys and the traders, to understand, like, say, when we provide information on how much mining is happening, you would be able to understand when should I move my ship to this particular port or location, because you generally know that if say copper is mined or say copper concentrates are going to move or coal is going to move, this particular mine moves from this particular port.
Yeah.
So you know that route. So having that information, a trader or a shipper or a freight guy can very well understand when do I take the decision to charter or move the cargo. So I think a larger collaboration, and we have seen that happening in the industry also,
Right.
because we also personally believe that would be the future, because to build out a very robust product which can monitor even the smallest of the nodes, because there are a lot of countries where a lot of inland transportation happens.
Sure.
Those kind of small nodes, there would be very specific companies working in that particular geography covering that.
Right.
So a larger partnership or collaboration also can be helpful to people trading and shipping these commodities.
Absolutely. And just to re-clarify on this one, that all the data that you actually get from your satellite images and other proprietary data is all publicly available data that anybody can procure and buy it. It's not something which is personally generated or privately generated data. It's all public data available that you're buying from international space agencies across the globe. Is that correct, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So we use the data sets from NASA. We use the data sets from the ESA, and these, the satellites programs like Lancet or the Sentinels. I mean, they are lie under the open source data sets. So
Yeah.
anyone, who wants to do the development of the product for the commercial purpose, or let's say for the academic purpose, I think free to do so.
Absolutely.
And along with that, we also use some commercial data sets which are from, let's say, Planet, Maxar, Airbus,
Hmm.
and along with the, the proprietary data sets which get fed into our model. As I've explained it, what the feedback which we got from our clients and the relationship what we have built it over a period of time. So it's a collaboration of like the public, private, and the proprietary data set which goes into the model, and the actionable insights comes out of what of our product.
Absolutely. I always make this the last question about students. I teach now with a lot of support from everybody in 14 business schools around the world on geopolitics and trade. And my students are always interested in listening to two things. Number one, if you want to recruit somebody in your company, you're all youngsters. I can see you are all probably students not too long ago. But basically, if you want to recruit somebody, what kind of traits, what kind of key qualities did you look for? Maybe one or two key qualities. And secondly, in terms of students, if you have any advice for them, what would you say they should be actually focusing on, whether it's in terms of what areas of study they should be focusing on, what could be the kind of key areas that they should try and give their importance to going forward, especially if they want to keep in touch and keep on top of the developments around. So these two things: advice for students and the qualities that you look for employees if you're recruiting some young students today.
Okay, so I will speak more on the, probably Naresh will speak more on the recruitment part. I'll speak. So what they need to do, need to know today. I think they are in the cusp of history where things are changing so dynamically. So they need to understand what can be the future. So predicting the future has become so difficult, especially after COVID, and now with AI coming in. That understanding technology in conjunction with geopolitics is very important today, because we don't see the picture that how commodities shape our world, but everything we use, see the laptop from where we are recording, our mobile phone, everything has metals.
Right.
Okay, and now with AI and data centers coming in, we will have metals plus energy, because a lot of energy is required to run these data centers.
Sure.
So they are in this world where they don't realize, but they will have to see behind the scenes what actually drives all these things that we are using. So they need to understand this picture and then look at the future, because what happened in technology in the past will be challenged, and we might not see those technologies in the near future. And there is a lot of innovation, especially on the commodities and shipping side, because these have been very traditionally driven industries, and with so much supply chain disruptions happening, they need to understand what's happening today, try to connect it with the future, see the things that are working behind the scenes in what we are experiencing daily,
Hmm.
and then try to bring in innovation connecting these dots. And I think we have a massive opportunity for these guys in the future with technology changes happening.
Brilliant. So you're basically saying artificial intelligence keep up with the change, and also predictive analytics and data analytics coupled with what's happening in the domain knowledge that you need to come. So obviously that has huge implications. Naresh, what about you? Who would you actually recruit? What's your criteria there?
Yeah, so I mean, so when we try to hire somebody in our organizations, irrespective of their experience, so we look at their problem solving skills, and we look at it, how exactly they are approaching a problem. Are they thinking from the first principles, right? Because as Nikit has rightly pointed out, the world is actually changing a lot faster than it did in last 30 to 40 years, right? Because of the GI, because of the AI or the geopolitical landscape, right? So today we get a lot of informations either through the tweets, social media post, or the opinion every minute. So in the world which is flooded with the informations, it is difficult to extract the data or the facts from the narrative or the signal from the noise. So unless and until you are thinking from the first principle or you have the critical thinking skills, it becomes really important. And second point, as both of you have pointed out, if let's say if you are open to learn the new technologies, as we are seeing, with the more and more development in the AI. So of course, AI is going to replace jobs in futures, but the fact is, people who know how to leverage the AIs in their day-to-day operations to eliminate the efficiencies, and people versus who don't know how to leverage the AIs in their day-to-day operations, probably they are going to replace first, then who knows the AI.
Exactly.
So to summarize, I would say the student should basically have this problem solving skills along with their critical thinkings, and they should be sort of open to willing to learn new things, right? And so with that mindset, I think probably they will be able to navigate through this complex world.
Absolutely, and that's a very valuable point. And one thing I would like to add, and your firm's name, as you rightly mentioned in Sanskrit, means the truth. So, complete commitment to the truth in all senses is very important, I think, when somebody joins you. And that is about values. In my mind, having the right values, especially with more technology driving all these changes, what really will differentiate a firm from the other will be basic values. I think that no technology can replace. And I'm actually very happy to see the kind of impact that technology is now making in some cases with the business that we're doing. So thank you very much for both Nikit and Naresh. You guys have been amazing. I'm sure I wish you all the best. You have got some amazing customers as well. I'm sure more are on the way. And thank you so much for this session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Puneet. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Puneet. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Seatrade Maritime Podcast, and we look forward to joining you on our next episode.